Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Explore Flower Medicine that cools the body and calms the mind. Discover the potent healing applications and ancient cosmological intelligence of flowers. Well, my name is Stephen Dine. I'm the president and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm just intrigued by the title today, and we're going to get to have this really cool exploration of flower medicine with one of the world's foremost experts, David Crow. He's a licensed acupuncturist, master clinical herbalist, researcher, and educator of natural medicine. He's taught all kinds of programs for us over the years in the field of illuminated herbalism, and we're going to get to really dive into particularly important and juicy area today around flower medicine. So welcome, David, to today's program.
Thank you again, Stephen. Great to be here.
Great. Well, I want to let everyone know up front that we're going to have this time with David, and we're going to have a chance to go much deeper in a brand new program called Illuminated Flower Medicine, the art and science of using teas, tinctures, and essential oils for whole being health, elevated enjoyment, and deeper spiritual practice. So more to come on that towards the end of the hour. So, David, I know you've shared a lot about your overall backstory, but maybe you'd like to really zoom in on a little bit of your history with working with flowers for medicinal purposes and why you've really come to see that as such an important part of the herbalist toolkit.
Flowers are part of classical Asian medicine, which is my primary training, Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine and Tibetan medicine, and also part of Western herbology. But the place where flowers really came into focus as a major branch of medicine was about 20 years ago when I started an essential oil company, Floricopia. And that company was one of the first companies to offer a kind of green business model, sustainability, ecological, and organic production of aromatic plants and essential oils. And that's where I started to really have a lot of contact with the plants on farms around the world, working with a lot of different growers, wild harvesters, and distillers. And so I had the great opportunity to do things with all kinds of aromatic plants, harvesting neroli flowers in Morocco and helping to distill them, or observing, filming the harvesting of jasmine in India and the harvesting of the lotuses and all kinds of processes that are done with flowers in different kinds of businesses. And so therefore, the aromatherapy industry is one of the main places where we meet flower medicines. But we also meet flower medicines in botanical perfumery, which I have spent some time studying and practicing and teaching, making blends myself from these really exotic flowers from around the world. And then using flowers specifically in formulas, in Western combinations in tincture form, or studying the role of flowers in Ayurvedic preparations. And what I've come to appreciate is that flowers are used extensively in medicines. They're used extensively in all the world's major herbal traditions, but they also have an incredible link to spiritual history, to ritual and ceremonies, and to perfumery, and to pleasure and eros and sensuality, and to offerings and temples and all kinds of spiritual and cultural history. And so actually flower medicines are a way that we can link to not just herbal medicine and the therapeutic benefits of herbal medicine, but if we study flower medicines, we're actually participating in something that is very old and a very rich and colorful and fragrant and meaningful and symbolic aspect of spiritual culture as well. So that's a quick overview.
What a great history that you've had those experiences. So let's talk a little bit about what makes flower medicine sort of uniquely beneficial.
There's a lot to say here. One of the major points is that flower medicines are highly therapeutic. Some species of flower medicines are actually some of the strongest medicines available. And some are very mild, some are very expensive and rare, and some are very easily available and low cost. But the unique thing about flower medicine is that there is this link with spiritual culture, and therefore we see that flower medicines have a place in ceremony, especially for Thanksgiving, celebration, fertility, marriage, end of life. They play a big role in aromatherapy with essential oils, as I said, and incenses. They are found in ancient formulas for temple incenses, and flowers are also associated with mythologies. Now, herbs in general, herbal medicine in general, also has all of these dimensions, but flowers have very unique, interesting mythological and symbolic association with goddesses, fertility, and we find so many depictions of the various deities around the world. What I am most familiar with, of course, is some of the depictions of the goddesses in Hinduism and in Buddhism. And we find goddesses and gods, male and female deities, wearing flowers, offering flowers that have all kinds of symbolic meaning. So if it's okay with you, I would just like to give a very quick tour of a few of the flowers that we're going to be talking about in our future course here, and people will recognize some things, and people will also be introduced to a few things they probably haven't seen. And this is a very, very quick overview. And the reason I wanted to include this as a slideshow is because one of the aspects of flower medicine is beauty. And beauty is not necessarily a part of herbal medicine when it comes to a lot of the plants. When we're digging for roots, it's not something that we would think of as, oh, this is really inspiring as far as beauty, but we're talking about color, and we're talking about the actual effects on consciousness just by seeing flowers and smelling flowers. So blue is trending. The blue lotus is trending, and this is increasingly well known now. It's a flower that has come into popular culture just in the last couple of years. And the big attraction is that it's a mild anxiolytic, helps with sleep. And of course, that gives rise to all kinds of claims about it being psychoactive. It's mildly psychoactive. It's a relaxant. Now, this is not the same species that was famous thousands of years ago as part of mythology, because this is a nymphaea. This is a water lily. It's not a true Nelumbo lotus, but it is an important flower medicine. And here is another important flower medicine that is also trending, that is also blue. And this is from Ayurveda. This has been used for a very long time in Ayurvedic formulas. And it is butterfly pea, which has specific applications for women's health, for many types of female hormonal issues, for example. And then we have yellow, and yellow has been trending now for several years. And this is actually one of the most important places where I came in contact with flower medicine was on the island of Corsica, participating in the growing and the harvesting and the distilling of the Helichrysum italicum. I was introduced to this quite a while ago, actually, over 10 years ago, when Helichrysum was first starting to come out in the general marketplace. And so I was involved in kind of introducing the flower oil of Helichrysum as a really important medicine for the skin regeneration, wound healing, bruise resolving, anti-inflammatory, and so forth. Now here's one, another yellow one that has been around and used extensively for thousands of years, and specifically in Chinese medicine. This one is coming back into focus now in popular culture because it is strongly antiviral. And this ingredient, honeysuckle, has been used in lots of formulas for pneumonia and upper respiratory infections with a lot of heat. And therefore, formulas containing honeysuckle have been getting an increased amount of attention and research and use. Here's an example of something that is commonly available and very low cost and very safe and very gentle, mild for everyone. And here's an example of something that is very potent. And so we go back and forth between mild and potent and also less expensive and more expensive. Cannabis, of course, has been trending for quite a while, but this is one of the flowers we should know how to use. It is one of the most powerful of the flower medicines, and because of that, it can be used with great benefit and can also cause a lot of problems. Some of the flowers are instantly recognizable all over the world. Lavender is the #1 selling essential oil in the world. And then some are relatively unknown, like bakul, which is found in the classical preparations of attars, which are the Indian perfumes distilled into sandalwood oil. Then we have things that are very rare and expensive, like saffron is one of the most rare and expensive. And then we have things that are very common and inexpensive, like calendula. And of course, both have a wide range of functions. I'll tell you a little bit more about saffron in a bit. And then we have things that are purely sensual, erotic, part of perfumery, like the essential oil from ylang ylang. And some are really highly medicinal. You don't find them in perfumery at all, like feverfew, very strong anti-inflammatory, used for migraines and so forth. Then we have things that are very targeted for specific organs, like hawthorn. Flowers are targeted for the heart, and linden is also very good for relaxing the cardiovascular system, a hypotensive or mild hypotensive relaxant, just like hibiscus. And then, of course, arnica is used in Western herbology, very well known in preparations for external topical use for bruising and swelling. Here's one for the eyes, chrysanthemum. This is also from Chinese medicine. Another one for the eyes is very specifically the saffron again. And for the kidneys and the bladder, for UTIs, we see goldenrod and we see corn silk. And this is something that people might not think of. They don't actually think, well, corn is a flower. And of course, the kernels have to be pollinated. And so this is a really important flower medicine, actually. Then we have things for the lungs like grindelia, and we have coltsfoot flowers for the lungs and mullein flowers for the lungs, and things for pain like California poppy, and things for detoxification like violet leaves and red clover, and prunella for viral infections, and then a whole range of things that are just beautiful essential oils for relaxing. Clary sage and mimosa, which is also made into a tea and tincture in Chinese medicine for calming the spirit, calming the shen, and magnolia for calming the spirit, and geranium and neroli, the orange blossom, and of course, the jasmine flowers for perfume, and osmanthus and plumeria. So that is a very brief overview of some of what makes flower medicine really special. It's beautiful to look at. But if we look at just the color itself, this is a really intriguing topic here. And color is actually a very unique aspect of flower medicine that plays a huge role in its function. Here's a kind of cosmological mystery part of this, and that is that in the development of the flower bud, first comes the pigment. And that's what we were looking at here. And we can see in the blue lotus, we can see the pigment itself in the flower. But after the pigment molecules have been formed, they are the pathway for the further evolution of the aromatic molecules. And that's where we get the essential oils, is the aromatic molecules. And these aromatic molecules evolve out of pigment molecules. And what that means, kind of symbolically or cosmologically, is that fragrance is actually the evolution of light. Okay, fragrance is a kind of expression of light. So we see all of these things that are inherent in these flower medicines, and then we can touch on why they're so unique in terms of using them. A lot of herbal medicine is not particularly pleasant to use. Like if you have to take bitter herbs like golden seal or gentian or something like that. But the flower medicines are actually based on pleasure. The flower medicines are based on relaxation and sensuality. So it's an entire branch of medicine that's based on just feeling good. It's not like you have to take these things that you force yourself to take. It's like you could take a aromatherapy bath with rose petals, and you can wear botanical perfumes, and you can get massage with these body oils with beautiful flower fragrances. And so they are an expression of beauty, and that's actually one of the main powers that they have to heal, is their beauty and their enjoyment and the pleasure. And enjoyment and pleasure is healing, and therefore the flower medicines are directly related to activating pleasure and sensuality, which is closely linked to relaxation, of course, and feeling better about ourselves mentally and emotionally. Then we can also say that flowers are unique because we can combine them with virtually anything, and they have been throughout history. So, for example, we can use the flowers in our personal rituals and ceremonies, and that includes the teas and the essential oils for self-anointing. We can use flowers in pranayama. We can use flowers with yoga practice and asanas. We can use them in bathing and sweat lodges. There's so many different ways that we can incorporate them, because they give us these beautiful aromas primarily. And then we can also say that if we're really looking at what is it about flowers that's really different than other forms of medicine, like what is it that makes flowers different from leaves or different from fruits or tree barks or something like that? And that is, they are actually the reproductive system of the flowering plants. And the flowering plants were the primary cause of higher life showing up on this earth. So there was not always a first flower. It took hundreds of millions of years for the very simple plants to create the biosphere. And then there was a first flower. And within a relatively short period of time of just a few 40 million years or so, flowering plants had taken over everything. And that's because a flower is a highly, highly successful reproductive mechanism that uses biodiversity. Now, this is important to consider, not just from the standpoint of medicine, but from the standpoint of human survival. And so it's important to consider something like this. Grasses are flowers, and grasses and grains are the foundation of the food chain. And so everything in the food chain comes from flowers, and therefore we can also include flower medicine in the category of flower medicine, nutrition in general. And the reason for that is because all flowers function in a very simple way, which is to attract. And they are attracting by sending out light and fragrance, and they are attracting the pollinators, and that's how they reproduce. Now, this attraction mechanism is trying to get the attention of the pollinators for one basic reward, and that is nectar in the flowers. Now, if we look at this link kind of cosmologically of all of these different things of light and fragrance and attraction and pollinators and reproduction and nectar and all of that, that's actually the basis of human life. we are dependent on the flowers for the food chain, and the food chain is based on sweetness and reproduction. Therefore, flower medicines have this really unique, strong link to this whole mandala of sweetness and fertility and food and nourishment and pleasure and enjoyment and all of these things. So that's a very brief introduction to a huge subject, Stephen.
That was an amazing overview. Really fascinating to see that it's like the evolutionary utility of pleasure and the attractiveness, and that's part of what gives them a lot of healing properties. Really cool. So let's talk about specific applications. We said in the title for today about cool your body. So how would you then take some of this overview and then apply it to specific flowers and cooling our bodies?
Well, that's a great question, and it is an intriguing answer. And that is, we can see that flowers as a general category of herbal medicine are mostly cooling by nature. Now, that's not the same for other categories of herbal medicine. Like, for example, spices tend to be mostly heating. And that's what they're used for. They're used to basically increase the fire element in the body, to increase the Agni, as we say in Ayurvedic medicine, the solar power in the body. But flowers tend to be mostly cooling, relaxing, anti-inflammatory. So they have a really unique role that I think is underappreciated, because we are moving into a time now where inflammation is just skyrocketing in terms of clinical practice. And autoimmune inflammation rates are going up, and infections increasing, and maybe we could say that there's some kind of link between human society and global warming. I think that's pretty obvious. And so the world is getting hotter, and more hot diseases are coming, more and more heat toxins, and more symptoms of inflammation. And here we have this entire class of botanical medicine that mostly is cooling. Now, that's not true for every species. And a lot of that is how you prepare the flower, how you use it. But in general, if we were going to say, what is the nature of something like cinnamon essential oil? Well, everybody would understand right away. You can't put that on the skin. It's going to burn, and most of the spice essential oils will. But if you look at aromatherapy, which is one of the primary ways that we use flower medicine, is in beautiful floral essential oils. Rhododendron from Bhutan, rose from the Valley of Roses in Bulgaria, all of these kinds of things. When we use them in aromatherapy, these flower oils actually are cooling. They're anti-inflammatory to use in oils for the skin and so forth. And there are some dramatic examples of that. For example, clary sage. I showed the image of clary sage. That essential oil from that flower has totally predictable, repeatable effects on cooling menopausal heat. It's just remarkable. Put a couple of drops of clary sage oil on the palms and inhale it, and women report over and over, very consistently, that hot flashes will just stop. And so a lot of women use clary sage in the bath on a regular basis. They use it in a massage oil, body oil. They use it in the diffuser. And this is one that is very cooling. But we look at the whole range of those exotic flowers that I showed you, like rose is one, and then the neroli, and most flowers actually in the essential oil department have cooling effects, not just for the body, not just for the skin, but also for the mind and for the emotions. And therefore, anything that cools heat is going to also relax the nervous system and give better sleep. So another aspect of flower medicine that is really intriguing and important is that they are medicines that come from biorhythms. that affect our biorhythms. And so the way we can think about this is that flowers open and close on a biorhythmic basis. Some flowers open during the day, some flowers open at night. Every species has a different time that it opens and closes. And this opening and closing is actually the signaling mechanism to the pollinators. And so when the flower opens, it's sending out light to the visual pollinators, or is sending out fragrance to the olfactory pollinators, like the moths. And it's telling them, here I am, the nectar is available, come and get it. Now, if we distill flowers, then we are actually capturing a kind of intelligence, a botanical intelligence that is in the flower that has to do with biorhythms. We're capturing the biorhythm of the flower in an essential oil form. And this is really interesting because if we look at the primary uses of floral medicine, we see that they are directly connected to two major systems. For both men and women, the flower fragrance goes directly to the limbic system and helps to restore balance of the circadian rhythms through getting better sleep and waking up more refreshed. And that's true for both men and women. And then we see that flower essential oils and flower herbs as teas and preparations, flowers have a pronounced effect on the female hormonal system, and specifically anything that is biorhythmic in nature, such as the menstrual cycle or the larger cycle of perimenopause and menopause. So this is really intriguing because if we look at what the plants are doing, the flowers are the reproductive system that are opening and closing in this biorhythm, and then we distill the essence out of that, or we make a tea out of it, and we use that medicine. And the medicine is actually the intelligence of the plant that is pulsating with this biorhythm. Now that's unique, totally unique in all the different aspects of herbal medicine. You don't see that in roots, you don't see it in leaves, you don't see it in seeds. You see this very pronounced link between flowers as reproductive systems operating on a biorhythmic basis, and specifically the female hormonal system. Well, that's a really unique and interesting aspect of flower medicine that is not found in other categories of medicine.
I feel like I'm learning so much. One of the things that I'd be curious about is like how spiritual practice can weave with our deeper understanding of herbs and plants, and in this case flowers, so that you're actually kind of creating a more meditative relationship with the flowers that goes beyond just sort of mechanistic one. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that now.
Okay, great question. And let me take the opportunity to define the term illuminated herbalism here. Yes, this gives us lots of opportunity to talk about a special way of thinking about herbal medicine and integrating herbs into meditation practice and spiritual practice into the use of the herbs. So this flower medicine class is partly described as illuminated herbalism. And that's because we are using herbs in conjunction with spiritual practice. And this opens up a lot of really interesting things to explore. We're not just consuming herbs like supplements mindlessly. We're actually participating in interacting with, communicating with, and listening to the plants as they work in the body. So illuminated herbalism, the term that we have been using here now for a couple of years, means two basic things. It means using plants to deepen our spiritual practices, and specifically meditation and concentration, and using our spiritual practices to potentize the plants, because when we use plants mindfully, then we are basically increasing the amount of prana, life force, in the body, because our attention is a kind of life force. And so we are directing the prana or the chi to the plant and to the body. And what that does is it makes the body much more receptive to the influences physiologically of the plants, and it makes our awareness more acute of what the herbs are actually doing. So if we use flower medicines, very mindfully, they work more powerfully. And if we are using them very mindfully as part of our spiritual practice, then they will help us tremendously with our meditation and relaxation and focus and concentration and visualization. Now, what could we do with this? There's a lot of different things that we could think of. And I'll just suggest one thing here. And Stephen, I'll go ahead and, if it's all right, I'll just go ahead and lead a very brief practice here. And I'll pick up on where you left off, asking about the cooling aspect of the flowers. The topic of why flowers are unique is because they are cooling. And so let me give you an example of how we might integrate flower medicines that are cooling by nature into a meditation practice that is also cooling by nature. Now, to set this up, to give a little context to what the practice is, we should consider that the body is not what we think it is. The body is actually a container of cosmological intelligence. And it contains the influence of the sun and the moon, the influence of fire and water. These are the two basic polarities in the body, fire and water. That's metabolic heat and fluids that hydrate. This is the basis of Ayurveda, the basis of Chinese medicine, yin and yang, sun and moon, or in yoga, it is Ida and Pingala, all right, the solar and lunar currents of the nervous system, autonomic nervous system, sympathetic stimulation, parasympathetic relaxation. So if we understand that the human body is actually made in this image of the celestial influences of sun and moon, then we can address the herbs that are cooling or heating to those specific functions in the body. Now, how do we do that? Well, we need one more piece of information here, and that is that the functions in the body that are cosmological in nature have always been deified. And so there have always been in every culture gods and goddesses of the sun, gods and goddesses of the moon, gods and goddesses of the water, and so forth, gods and goddesses of the fire. And this linking to the cosmological deities is part of classical Asian medicine. So, for example, in Ayurveda, we say the digestive fire is Agni. That means the sun is in our digestive system. And our metabolic warmth, 98.6 degrees, this is sunlight. It's literally sunlight combusting in the body at the cellular level. So when we would like to do a meditation, then what we think about is the cooling, hydrating aspects in the body, and we think of the moon. And we think of this as a landscape of deities inside of us. And so I have a really nice cooling tea here. This is a little bit of a blend. It's got lavender and rose and blue lotus. And all of these are very cooling and relaxing. Now, before I drink this, I'm going to establish in meditation an awareness that the body is made of water and that the water element in the body is linked to hydration and cooling. And I'm also going to link that to the moon because the water element and the moon are very closely connected. And then that's going to link to parasympathetic relaxation. And so if we understand this basic mandala, cool the body through relaxation, through hydration, through blue herbs, cooling lavender-colored herbs, okay, we tie all these things together. Then what we do next is we simply feel the body as a container of cooling water. And we can go really far into this kind of practice because the water element has so many forms of deities. goddesses of the springs and the rivers and the streams, and goddesses and gods of the oceans, and all of these things. And they're all inside the body as a microcosmic level of cosmological planetary intelligence. So we recognize that the body has these cosmological powers that are deities that live inside us, that are either cooling or heating, drying or moistening. And then we meditate on the cooling sensations of the water element in the body. And we don't perceive the body in an ordinary way anymore. We perceive the body as the abode of deities, the abode of cosmological intelligence that is divine and is cooling because it's water and it's linked to the moon. And here are all these flowers that are cooling in this cooling tea. And we make it an offering. And that way, we are linking together this entire mandala of symbolism and mythology and deities and elements and moon and water and streams and springs and flowers and nectar and all of these things. And just by doing that, it completely transforms the experience and the effects of taking a simple herbal tea. So, Stephen, that's a very brief overview of something we could spend a very long time doing.
I love the way you weave the mystical and the practical together in such a really beautiful way. So yeah, that was really cool demonstration and how to really work with the more ritualistic aspect of this as well. So let's talk a little bit about how you work with flower medicines and what forms and what's good for different types, teas, tinctures, essential oils. Like, just share a little bit about how you can kind of like build out your toolkit.
Right, exactly. Well, the primary ways are going to be the flowers themselves. Here's helichrysum flower, and this was always used traditionally in a tea form or a poultice form, actually. One of the ways that it was discovered that it had wound healing properties is that the shepherds would make a poultice out of these flowers and put it on the sheep or the goats when they were injured. That is one form, dried flowers. And then, of course, there are many kinds of dried flowers: lavender, dried flowers, roses, dried flowers. So we start with dried flowers as one of the most accessible ways that we can use flower medicine. Now, dried flowers can be used in a number of ways. We can make a tea, like I just showed you here. We can make a cooling tea. We can have a saffron tea, and that's really easy. Just hot water infusion, basically. Then, after that, come all kinds of different extracts. And there's one that I was preparing earlier that I didn't show you. And I wanted to show you this because of the color again. And this is actually taken out of a soft gel capsule. And this is a product that is partly from marigold flowers. I showed you the picture and said it was good for the eyes, and saffron, which is also good for the eyes. And so what you can see here is that this is very rich in color pigment. And color pigment, as I said, is one of the main nutrients for the eyes. And so we can find all of these modern kinds of products that are extracts of flowers like this. And then, of course, we have the essential oils. And the essential oils come in all kinds of different sizes and labels and qualities and things like that. And then we have flowers that we can use in our cooking, and spices like saffron specifically goes into the food. And then a very popular form is, here it is, a cannabis product in California. And this is a topical ointment, a salve. So these are the main ways. And then, of course, there's also flower essences. And people get confused frequently between essential oils and flower essences. Now, essential oils are distilled aromatic compounds from a whole range of different types of aromatic plants, including roots and barks and seeds and leaves and flowers. But flower essences are more of a subtle, energetic preparation that's more like homeopathic. And so Rescue Remedy is probably the most famous of the flower essences. And these are a preparation of flowers, and they are very subtle, and they're very good for sensitive people and for animals and for children. Whereas flower essential oils, or essential oils in general, are all the way over at the other extreme of concentration level. So that's a very brief overview of some of the preparations, some of the methods. And from that, we can go even further into a lot of details about what do you do with this. So, for example, an essential oil of lavender or any kind of floral essential oil, well, you can use it in a whole range of ways. You can put a couple drops on a pot of hot water and cover your head with a towel and breathe the steam for upper respiratory infections, sinus problems, headaches, things like that. You can use a couple drops on the bath, or you can put the flowers directly into the bath. So baths are one way that we can use flower medicine very nicely. Another way is to wear the flower oils as a perfume. And this is a very traditional, classic way that was highly developed in India, especially with the development of attars, A-T-T-A-R-S, attars, which were classically distilled flower essences, flower essential oils, distilled into a base of sandalwood and then worn as a perfume. Now, these have to be applied repeatedly because they're not synthetic perfumes where you just put it on and it smells exactly the same all day long. These actually become part of your own internal chemistry. And so botanical perfumery is also a really important aspect of flower medicine, because if you wear these fragrances of flowers and other aromatic plants, let's think about what is the purpose of these aromatic molecules. These aromatic molecules that were made by the roses or the magnolia and the champa and the plumeria and the osmanthus, these aromatic molecules are molecules of attraction, telling the pollinators that the nectar is here. The sweet nectar food is here for you. And that means that the effect on consciousness is completely different than essential oils that are part of a plant's immune system to repel things. Now, my thinking on this, I've wondered, how does a pollinator feel when it's climbing around inside a flower full of all of these beautiful fragrances and nectar? It's got to be a pleasurable experience, because we know how insects feel if they come in contact with something like clove oil. They run away from it. So in other words, the repellent essential oils and fragrances probably create a great discomfort in the insects, whereas the attractant molecules probably make them feel euphoric. They want to get in the flower. Now, if we understand that, then we can understand one of the most important aspects of flower medicine, which is that the aromas do that to us. They do that to our brain. We can actually feel euphoric very, very quickly from just wearing a beautiful botanical perfume with some of the exotic flower oils in it. We can feel euphoric. And if we feel euphoric, then that's incredible healing. Because if we feel euphoric, well, that's the antidote to our anxiety and our depression and our stress. And the more we can feel euphoric from smelling flowers, the better life appears, and the happier we are, and the more functional we are, the nicer we are, and the healthier we are as well. So that's botanical perfumes. So there's all of these different forms. And again, it goes back in history. A lot of these things, like the attars in India, they go back centuries and centuries. Or the use of garlands, in ceremony and ritual. I mean, imagine some of these festivities that used to happen where, people would be inundated with rose petals, like tons and tons of rose petals, like at weddings and things like that. Imagine how that would make you feel, how happy you would feel. You'd feel totally delirious from it. So that's another aspect of botanical medicine, or flower medicine, that's unique in botanical medicine.
Well, David, you pull so many fascinating threads together. It's a whole tapestry of different information and wisdom and practice. It's really cool. So I want to spend some time now talking more explicitly about your upcoming program, because it's really a unique opportunity to dive deep with you into this area. The program is called Illuminated Flower Medicine, the art and science of using teas, tinctures, and essential oils for whole being health, elevated enjoyment, and deeper spiritual practice. And you can find it at the URL flowermedicinecourse.com, flowermedicinecourse.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites. And so it's really just if you're curious or intrigued, or if you've got a deeper level of practice already in this area, or you want to go to the next level, then you're warmly welcome to join. So, David, I'd love for you to share in your own words about this program, and then I'll read out the module title so you give us a little preview of what's coming in each.
You're going to learn a lot about 60 flowers. And one of the things that I found really amazing in organizing this material into this particular format for this class was that some flowers are highly targeted for very specific kinds of purposes. And those will be primary flowers in a specific module for that purpose, like flowers specifically for the respiratory system. Another unique aspect of flower medicine is that a lot of flowers actually do a lot of things. They cover a lot of different categories therapeutically. So we're also going to find that many flowers show up in many different modules. And that way you will get a really comprehensive understanding. You may know chamomile as being good for your digestive system, but what about all the other systems that it treats? Nervous system and the skin and the hormonal system and the allergies and the eyes and all these kind of things. Another aspect of this is that we will be doing, as part of every module, a specific illuminated herbalism type of practice, meaning that we're going to link the flowers, a flower or 2 or 3 flowers or a tea or some kind of preparation that is relevant to that module. We're going to take that flower or flowers and we're going to link it back to the mythology, back to culture, back to symbology, back to deities. And then we're going to bring in this principle that where we focus our attention, that energy goes there. And if we focus our attention deeply on the plant and deeply on the body, and we listen deeply to what the plant is doing in the body, we will have remarkable experiences of the plant teaching us itself directly what it does through awareness of our body sensations. So that would be a quick overview from my side.
Very exciting. It really opens up a whole new world. So we just have time for a brief overview of each module, but module 1, flower medicines to rejuvenate your sensuality and eros.
We'll be talking about longevity, the longevity promoting aspects of sweetness, the flavor and the fragrance. And this is where we're going to meet the most exotic, most intoxicating of the flowers and their fragrances. And paradoxically, the most erotic and sensual of the flowers also are some of the most profoundly spiritual of the plants as well.
Amazing. Module 2, flower medicines for deep relaxation, improved sleep, and calming the spirit.
Just like it sounds. And this is where we can touch on Blue Lotus, which is trending, as I said. And we're going to be talking about cannabis, because cannabis is a flower medicine and it is so important. But it's also a very big topic. So I'm going to touch on it. Cannabis Part 1 in this one, how to safely use it, how not to abuse it. And then we're going to be looking at the major flowers from different traditions that help to calm the spirit. That's how we address stress, anxiety, and insomnia. And of course, more essential oils that are relaxing. And then how to use these things in the illuminated herbalism way to help to promote deeper rest and relaxation.
Module 3, improve your health and well-being with flower medicines that balance the female hormonal system.
Well, this goes back to this idea that the flowers are pulsating biorhythms that are the plant's reproductive system. And so we just take that idea and we apply it specifically to balancing the female hormonal system. And we use essential oils from flowers, and we use things that are also very specific hormonal balancers. One of the others that is trending that I mentioned is the butterfly pea and flower essences. This is a good place to put flower essences because they can be very helpful at the subtle energetic level for these kind of things as well.
Module 4, flower medicines for healing your skin and supporting your eyes.
These are a nutrient-based use of flowers for the eyes. There's a lot of flowers also that clear heat out of the eyes. Flowers for conjunctivitis and flowers for improving vision, flowers for allergies that are affecting the eyes and so forth. And then there's also a lot of flowers that can be used for the skin. And some of these are the milder essential oils like rose. But the main way that I use flowers for the skin is in herbal washes and herbal baths because they're very, very safe. And so we touch on some of the really important, famous flowers for this, rose being one of them, helichrysum being another one. Helichrysum is famous for the skin now. So we go into quite a lot of depth about these specific flowers for specific systems.
Module 5, flower medicines as antivirals and antimicrobials to enhance your immunity, purify your environment, and improve your respiratory health.
There's all kinds of ways to use flowers as teas and tinctures for boosting our respiratory immunity, which is increasingly necessary. And also, these things can be used in steams and in baths. We'll also touch on floral honeys that can be a base. And we'll talk about a lot of flowers in this category that are widely available just in the local environment where you may be living, in the countryside around. Things like elderflowers. Elderflowers grow across the entire North American area. And honeysuckle and things like bee balm and mullein and things like that. So medicinals for the lungs. This is really medicinals for the respiratory system and respiratory immunity. This also crosses over to antiviral powers.
Module 6, flower medicines to heal your digestive system.
A lot of people know many of the major flowers for the digestive system, like chamomile. But what we're going to be spending a lot of time with are the lesser known flowers from other traditions. What are things that are found uniquely in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine that are flowers? And not just as a single flower tea, but a formula.
Very cool. Module 7, the final module, is flower medicines for detoxification, pain relief, and anti-inflammatory uses.
Right, and this looks like it's going to be really action-packed because there are so many issues that we could cover here. We need to support detoxification of the kidneys, and we need to treat many different specific types of pains. There's a lot to cover. There's a whole pharmacy right there, just talking about the flowers. Lots of other things that people may not know about, unique Ayurvedic flowers that are used in detox treatments specifically, used in panchakarma, or things that people may not know a lot about yet, but they're known to clinical herbalists. So that's a quick overview on that very extensive module.
Well, what an amazing offering this is, and clearly just like there's such a wealth of information and so practical and deeply metaphysical too, in terms of like a whole different level of relationship with the plant kingdom, and particularly flowers can open up. So these are very in-depth modules. David is teaching 120-minute live sessions with all of these. So you get not only the 7 live sessions, which include interactive exercises, Q&A time. You also get recordings, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's some weekly exercises for home, a Facebook community to support and deepen your experience. And on the page, you'll also see a number of bonuses that really enhance the journey for you. There's a video teaching from David called Flowers, Pollinators, and Humans. There's also another video teaching the flowers of the human body and subtle nervous system. And you also get 10% off 2 of David Crow's favorite herb companies, herbal supplier discount package. Anything you want to share about any of those 3 bonuses, David?
Students always appreciate when they can get a discount at the herb companies. The bonus classes that I offered are actually 4 standalone full classes. They're fairly extensive. The flowers of the human body and the subtle nervous system. This is where we can actually make a link between flowers and yoga and tantra and internal visualization practices and the chakras. And we can find some really incredible teachings from Chinese medicine about how the sense organs, parts of the body are actually like flowers. So this is really taking the symbol of the flower and applying it to medicine and looking at how the human body functions like a flower or like several flowers, and how the subtle nervous system and spiritual awakening has always been linked to this kind of metaphoric process of opening like a flower.
Truly fascinating. Well, David, there's so much in here, and those are just the bonuses. So again, this is an incredibly valuable course, and there's a special bonus that you get when you sign up by midnight tonight. This is a special teaching from David called Flowers and Biorhythms. David, you want to share about that special bonus folks get when they sign up right away?
This is looking at the relationship between what flowering plants are doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it with the pollinators, what that whole relationship is about, and what does that have to do with us? Well, this is a really good example of a principle of herbal medicine that I have shared with many people for a long time, and that is herbal medicine is the use of the compounds that plants produce for themselves for parallel human purposes. And the deeper meaning of this is that the human body is actually made in the mirror image of plants in a lot of ways. And that's because we depend on plants for food, and we depend on plants to get sunlight. We can't live on sunlight. And so plants are the interface between the sun and human metabolism, and the parallels are really quite incredible. Parallel immune systems between plants and humans, parallel functions on all kinds of levels. We're breathing together with plants and opposite gaseous exchange. And so this aspect of biorhythms is using the compounds that the plants produce for themselves. In this case, they are these signaling mechanisms that operate on a biorhythmic basis. And we take those compounds into the body, and they help us to regulate our own biorhythms. And regulating our biorhythms is incredibly important for getting well.
What an amazing program, and great extra bonus and reason to sign up right away. And by midnight Pacific time, you'll get the Flowers and Biorhythms. So we've kept the investment for this program, even though it's very robust with all the bonuses, extra teaching time every week. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full with 1 payment of $349. The course starts September 26th and runs Tuesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, transcripts, and community as well. And I highly encourage you to go over to the page at flowermedicinecourse.com and read through some of the testimonials. David has just gotten rave reviews from so many students over the years, really life-changing information, deep cosmological insights, all the way down to sort of like the very precise formulas of how to work with different plant medicines, and you're really in great hands. There's really no one better, and you're going to be in for a very illuminating journey. So again, that URL is flowermedicinecourse.com, flowermedicinecourse.com, and you get the special Flowers and Biorhythms when you sign up by midnight tonight. So David, it's really awesome to learn from you. So thank you so much for your time and wisdom here today. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering going deeper on this journey with you?
Well, to everyone who has tuned into this, I'll just say thank you for your interest. And I will add that plant medicine in general is becoming increasingly necessary. It's actually becoming increasingly biologically necessary that we consume more plants in a highly educated way to empower ourselves physiologically, to strengthen ourselves, to boost our immune system, to cool the inflammation. We really need to be using natural medicine more and more. The more we know, the healthier we are going to be, and the more we can protect ourselves from all of the different things that are going on around us. And I'll just say thank you, Stephen, again, for this wonderful opportunity to share this knowledge and to bring these medicines to people again.
Well, thank you, David, for the lifetime of learning and mastery that has gone into what you can share. And thank you all for joining here today. And you're warmly welcome to go further at flowermedicinecourse.com. You're going to be in great hands, and you'll get that special bonus on flowers and biorhythms when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you so much. Many blessings.